In solo leveling, after my glorious Shadow Monarch finally arrived at Jeju Island in order to save the hunters who participated in the raid, it was obvious to everybody watching that the fate of the country now laid in the hands of the man in front of them. Drizzy Woo summoned every single soldier in his arsenal, preparing to have an all-out war against the raging horde of ants heading their way. My glorious king then called for Iron's name, making him send out a deafening roar using the skill Shout of Provocation. The ants were provoked all right, as they were suddenly enraged, heading straight toward his army at terrifying speeds. Drippy Woo then tapped Iron on the chest, commending him for his work. As he then leaped over to the swarm, summoning the daggers he obtained after defeating Demon King Baran, he quickly speed blitzed over 100 ants in the fraction of a second, without even giving them the chance to attack. Tusk then stood in front of the injured S-rankers, casting a protective barrier over them, as Dongwook was in utter disbelief, questioning who the one fighting even was. But Baek Yoonho replied, telling him not to worry, as they were now in good hands, saying that everything was going to be okay now that he was here. An ant then suddenly rushed forward, preparing to attack, but his skull was suddenly crushed in an instant by a soldier. As my boy Igris quickly slammed his body into the ground, slicing off the heads of the two ants that tried sneaking up behind him. At the other side of the battlefield, both Tank and Iron were rampaging across the scene, slaughtering everything in their path. My glorious king then smiled, stating that it was now time to step it up, as he then stood over a sea of corpses, stating the command, erect. The reporter couldn't believe his eyes, questioning what the hell was going on, asking if the ants who were once destroyed were now really fully resurrecting. The editor-in-chief then shouted in the reporter's ears, telling him to explain the situation immediately, since the entire country was watching. But the reporter nervously replied, saying that even he wasn't sure of what was going on either. He didn't know why, but the ants were now suddenly tearing each other to pieces. Drippy Woo then went over to the other hunters, telling them to gather around. He pulled out a healing potion, but he remembered that since he couldn't make any transactions, he would have to feed it to them himself. He then told them to drink what he was going to give them, saying he would explain everything later. After the hunters finished drinking their potions, they were surprised by their effectiveness, saying that every single one of their wounds were actually healed. But Dongwook questioned why Mommy Cha was the only one still unconscious, making my glorious king reply, saying that it was because she suffered super serious injuries, meaning he couldn't heal her with his abilities, as he then felt that his future wife was slowly growing